what you bring. But if I wanted to get any one of you to identify your strengths, here's what I'd get you to do. I would say do this. Take a blank, and I would encourage you to do exactly this next week. And this isn't hard. You've just never done it before. Take a blank sheet of paper around with you, or a blank pad, and draw a line down the middle of the page. And on the right-hand column, at the top of it, write, I loved it. And on the left-hand side, write, I loathed it. Right? And then take it around with you for a whole week. And any time you find yourself doing something that invigorates you, scribble it down. Don't wait until the end of the day. Don't wait until the end of the week and try and recreate it. As you're doing it, scribble it down. And as you're thinking about which activities invigorate you and which don't, look for these 4 very simple and clear signs of a strength. 4 simple signs of a strength. Here's what they are. And they follow the acronym SIGN, which is convenient. The S stands for success. So I would say to you next week, any activity that you feel effective at, scribble it down. As you're doing it, if as you're doing it, you feel like you have what's called self-efficacy, you feel effective, regardless of whether anyone else tells you you're good, any activity where you feel successful, scribble it down. What were you doing? But that's not the only sign of a strength, is it? Why? Because there are some things you're quite successful at that if you never had to do them again, it would be too soon. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? You're really good at some things you hate doing. And the annoying thing is people keep asking you to do it because you're good at it. It's a strange curse, isn't it? I once interviewed this chap who was a wonderful swimmer. At the age of 6, he had the most beautiful crawl stroke, freestyle stroke. And so this lifeguard who saw him swim said to his mom, hey, you've got to put him in swim school. He's just got the most natural swimming stroke I've ever seen. And he went off and he was put in swim camp and he became really, really good at swimming. I mean, awesomely good, so that he won meet after meet after meet. In the state of California, he's got record after record. But at the age of 17, he realized that he was getting, before every meet, every swim meet, debilitating migraines. He was blessed with the wonderful ability to swim and cursed with no appetite for it. Well, you'll have something like that, won't you? You'll have a bunch of things. You're good at them. You can do them. You just wish you didn't. A strength isn't what you're good at, is it? Because what would you call those things that you're good at that you don't want to do? There must be more to a strength than just success. There are. There are 3 other signs. Here's the first one. Instinct. The I stands for instinct. Any activity next week that you find yourself looking forward to doing, write it down. You're not looking forward to everything next week, are you? But there are some very specific things in the week next week that even as you're listening to me now, you're thinking about it. You're kind of, So if you find yourself looking forward to an activity in a week, scribble it down. The G stands for growth. Some activities next week, as you're doing them, time will seem to speed up and whip by, and you'll look up and whole hours will have gone by. If you're using your strength, it's like your synapses are firing and your whole brain is growing. It's like your whole brain is just growing while you're doing them. Flip that around. There'll be some activities next week where as you're doing them, you won't be able to concentrate at all. Time will seem to slow down to a crawl. If you can't concentrate on an activity, it's a pretty good sign that it's not a strength. The N stands for needs. When you're done with some activities next week, it's like you were put here to do that thing. You may be tired, but you're not drained. You're the opposite of drained. There are some activities next week that will leave you feeling like that, whatever that word is. That word. It'll be like it fulfilled a need of yours. Scribble that down. Go through a whole week just capturing those specific activities that make you feel, while you're doing them, you feel effective. Before you do them, you look forward to doing them. While you're doing them, you can concentrate like your whole brain is firing and growing. And when you're done with them, it's like you've fulfilled a need of yours. You need to pay extraordinarily close attention to how certain activities in a week make you feel. Because how they make you feel will drive how good you get at them. Do you follow me? In the language of sign, let's just put sign back up again real quick. In the language of sign, the I, the G, and the N drive the S. Your appetites drive your abilities. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, wait a minute. There are some activities in my week that I look forward to doing. I've got an instinct for them. There's a lot of G, growth. When I'm doing them, time whips by. When I'm done with them, I feel good. Lots of I, lots of G, lots of N, no S. What do you call those? Lots of appetite, no ability. What do you call that? Well, we have a word for that. We have a word for activities where you have a lot of appetite and no ability. We call those hobbies. And that's why they stay hobbies, because no one's relying on you to do them. But it's weird. Back in the real world, the world of other people's expectations of you, back in the world of your role, your responsibilities in your family or your company or your organization or your church, it's weird how quickly we dismiss that as a luxury. Very few of us in our real world maintain a strong appetite for activities we're manifestly bad at. Now, sometimes you'll see people yearning for a job that brings with it prestige and title. But when you actually drill down into the activities of that job, most of us don't misdiagnose what we're drawn to. I mean, somebody that on your team might say to you, I want to be a leader, because it carries with it that kind of aura of specialness and prestige. But if you drill down and you go, all right, do you love being responsible for other people's problems? Do you love that? Do you love having your entire reputation in someone else's hands? Do you love that? Do you love being entirely responsible for what other people do when you're not there to tell them to do it? Do you love that? Because that's the job. It's like I used to do a lot of work with Merrill Lynch, and people would say, I would love to be a stockbroker. Oh, really? Do you love calling people up again and again, maybe 200 times a week, and asking them for money? And hearing 195 no's? Do you love that deep, consistent, personal rejection? Do you love that? Because that's the job. And you know what's weird? Some of you in this room do love that. Some of you love hearing no's. Some of you in this room are energized and invigorated by turning people around. Some of you hate it. But it's weird. Back in the real world, very few people misdiagnose what they're drawn to. So next week, seriously, do this. Tease apart your week. Look for those 4 signs and write down the activities that you get. By the end of the week, you'll have about 12 to 15 I loved it, and 12 to 15 I loathed it. And here's what I would encourage you to do. Look at the I loved it column and pick your 3 strongest, the ones that just blew you away before you did them. And then write 3 strength statements. 3 statements that are written by you in your handwriting, in your language, that begin with the phrase, I feel strong when. Because a strength is not what you're good at. A strength is an activity that makes you feel strong. Your strengths are those activities that make you feel strong. Here's an example. When I went through it, one of the top activities I'd written down was, I loved interviewing Rosa. Rosa was a housekeeping supervisor for Hampton Inn, at the LAX Hampton Inn. But she was excellent at her job. This 1,300 Hampton Inn, she was the best executive housekeeper they had. And I was sitting down in the break room asking her why she was so good at what she did. Again, this might sound incredibly tedious to you, but for me, all of the different signs of a strength were there. I felt effective at it. Before I talked to her, I looked forward to doing it. While we were doing it, time whipped by, and when I was done with it, I was all kind of tingly. I mean, it's weird. So out of that, I'm looking at that, and I go, all right, I will write a strength statement from this. And this is what it became. Let's put that up. I feel strong when I interview someone who excels at his job and explore why he excels. Now, when you look at that, I don't know, maybe that's boring to you. Maybe that doesn't move you at all. And that often happens with strength statements. Other people look at them, they're not very exciting. But I look at that, that rocks my world. When I look at that statement, that is incredibly powerfully clarifying for me. Emotion created it. When I read that, it helps me see what I'm supposed to do in the world. That's one of the wonderful things about defining a strength this way, is that is that you are the authority on your strengths. You are the authority on